Before we start, let us discuss the answers for the assignment given in the previous session. First main, answer the following. Question 1. How did the king want to make his palace special? Answer. The king wanted to make his palace special by setting the whole palace on a single wooden column carved from one of the biggest trees in his kingdom. Question 2. Why couldn't the foresters carry or drag the huge trees to the city? Answer. The foresters couldn't carry or drag the huge trees to the city as there was a difficult terrain in between the forests and the city. Question 3. Name the animals suggested by the king for pulling the tree. Answer. Horses, bullocks, and elephants were the animals suggested by the king for pulling the tree. Question 4. Why was the sal tree worshipped by the people of many villages? Answer. The sal tree was worshipped by the people of many villages because within it lived a tree spirit who gave the tree its great strength, size, and beauty. Second main, use the following words in sentences of your own. First one, beautiful. We have a beautiful garden in front of our house. Second one, difficult. It is very difficult to climb a steep hill. Third one, splendid. The fireworks looked splendid across the dark sky. Third main, match the column A with column B. First one, horses would not be able to move the tree even an inch. Second one, bullocks would not be able to force their way in the dense forest. Third one, elephants' legs could sink in the marshy ground. I hope you all have got your answers right. Now let's move on to the lesson, the great spirit of the sal tree. I hope you remember what we learned in the previous session. Once upon a time, a king of North India wanted to build a palace which was extraordinary and could not be found in any other country. So, he decided to build the palace upon a single wooden column that was carved from one of the biggest trees in his kingdom. So the king sent for his minister and told him to send men to the forest and bring the wood of the strongest and biggest tree. So some foresters were sent and they soon came back to the king saying that there were many trees which were big and strong, but they could never carry or drag these trees over the difficult terrain that lay between the forest and the city. So after hearing this, the king said to bring the tree using animals like horses, bullocks, and elephants. But the men said even these animals could not carry them as it was very difficult. So the king got angry and tells them if they cannot bring such a tree from the forest, at least go to the park which is nearby and find a tree like the one which he told. So the foresters went to the nearby park, and then they found a beautiful salt tree which was worshipped by the villagers. With much reluctance, they decided that the king's palace would be made from this salt tree. Now we will continue the lesson and see what happened later. Before we start the lesson, let us learn the meanings of a few words from the lesson. First one, abode means home. I went round the streets and found his new abode. Second one, whisper means to speak very softly. The children whispered in the class so the teacher wouldn't hear them. Third one, thrive means live. Flowers will not thrive without sunshine. Fourth one, rustle means to make a soft sound like movement of dry leaves or paper. I heard a soft rustle of leaves. Now let's continue the lesson. I will read the lesson. You listen carefully. They returned to it with garlands, lamps, and music to offer to the spirit inside and to warn him that he must leave his abode, for within 7 days it would be cut to ground. The tree spirit heard and understood well enough what was about to happen. It remained quiet as a resting breeze blew for a few moments. Then all his leaves began to whisper, and his topmost branches bowed, and the foresters went away satisfied that he had answered their plea. But this was what the leaves were whispering to each other. Should the king's decision hold, not only shall we perish, we and our spirit, for the salt spirit cannot exist anywhere else, but our fall will crush all the little salt trees that have sprung up and thrive under our protection. For ourselves we care not, but for children's sake we wish that the king had not wished it so. So, in the previous class, we learned that the foresters found a tree which was big and strong to support the palace. So, they decided that the king's palace would be built by the salt tree which they found in the park. So the next day, they came back to the salt tree with garlands, lamps, and music to offer to the spirit inside. So we learned that there was a spirit living inside the salt tree. And people used to worship the tree because the spirit was there. So the foresters also came back with garlands, lamps, and music to give it to the spirit inside the tree, and also to warn the spirit that he must leave his abode. Abode is the home where the spirit was living. So the home of the spirit was the salt tree. So they warned the spirit to leave that place, for within 7 days it would be cut to ground. So the foresters told the tree spirit that the salt tree would be cut in 7 days and he has to leave that place. So the tree spirit heard this and understood that something was going to happen there, and then it remained quiet. as a resting breeze blew for a few moments. So, a quiet breeze, a soft blowing wind started blowing for a few moments. Then, what happened? When the breeze blew, all the leaves in the tree started moving, and it looked as though they were whispering to each other. Whispering is talking softly to each other. And his topmost branches bowed, and all the branches which were at the top of the sal tree, they started moving, and some of them started bending downwards. And the foresters went away satisfied that he had answered their plea. So, when the leaves started moving and all the branches started bending, the foresters thought that, oh, the tree has understood that it's going to be cut, and they are okay with it. But this was what the leaves were whispering to each other. But actually, the leaves were whispering to each other. That is, they were making some soft noise which looked like as though they were talking softly to each other. And this is what they were saying. Should the king's decision hold, not only shall we perish. So they were talking to each other very softly. That is, the sound made by the leaves looked as though they were whispering. So they were telling that if the king is going to cut the tree, then not only that they will die, but we and our spirit, for the soul spirit cannot exist anywhere else. So not only will we die if the tree is cut, but even the spirit which is living in this tree, that also cannot live somewhere else. But our fall will crush all the little salt trees that have sprung up and thrive under our protection. So the leaves were telling each other that if the tree is cut, they will also die, and the tree spirit also cannot live there. And also, the small trees that have come around the big tree, they also will die because they are living under the protection of the big sal tree. You can see in the picture there are some small trees near the big tree. So the leaves were worried. So they were thinking of the small trees around that big tree. For ourselves we care not, but for children's sake we wish that the king had not wished it so. So the leaves felt that they don't care for themselves. Even if they die, it's okay. But they were very much worried about the small trees which had come up around the big tree. So they say we don't care for ourselves, but for the children's sake, for the small plants which are around the salt tree. So we care for that. So at least for their sake, they were wishing that the king will not cut the tree. Now, you will read the lesson after me. They returned to it with garlands, lamps, and music to offer them to the spirit inside and to warn him that he must leave his abode, for within 7 days it would be cut to ground. The tree spirit heard and understood well enough what was about to happen. It remained quiet as a resting breeze blew for a few moments. Then all his leaves began to whisper, and his topmost branches bowed, and the foresters went away satisfied that he had answered their plea. But this was what the leaves were whispering to each other. Should the king's decision hold, not only shall we perish, we and our spirit, for the soul spirit cannot exist anywhere else, but our fall will crush all the little soul trees that have sprung up and thrive under our protection. For ourselves we care not, but for children's sake we wish that the king had not wished it so. Now that you have read and understood the lesson, I will ask a few questions. Try to answer them. What did the foresters warn the tree spirit about? Yes, the foresters warned the tree spirit to leave his abode as the tree would be cut to the ground within 7 days. Next question. How did the foresters know that the tree spirit had answered their plea? Yes, the tree spirit answered the forester's plea by remaining quiet as a resting breeze blew. For a few moments, the leaves whispered and the topmost branches bowed. Let's continue the lesson. The spirit within the tree thought, "This must not be allowed. I must visit the king and persuade him." That night, while the king was asleep, a shining figure appeared to him in his dreams and spoke in a voice that was like a rustle. "I am the spirit of the salt tree. O king, your foresters this day have told me of your decision to fell me. I have come to beg you to change your mind." "No, I cannot," grumbled the king. "Yours is the only tree in all my parks strong enough to support a palace building, and therefore I must have it." So, the spirit inside the salt tree heard the king's decision to cut the tree. So then the spirit thought, "This must not be allowed. So we should not allow to cut the tree. So I will visit the king and persuade him." Persuade is to give him proper reasons not to cut the tree. So I must go to the king and give him proper reasons and tell him not to cut the tree. So that night, while the king was asleep, a shining figure appeared to him in his dreams. So that night, when the king was sleeping, this spirit went there as a shining figure. You know, spirit is a ghostly figure. So it went there shining, and it appeared in the king's dream and spoke in a voice that was like a rustle, very softly. That is, rustle is the soft sound made by leaves. So the spirit goes to the king's palace and then appeared in his dreams and then speaks to him. "I am the spirit of the salt tree. O king, your foresters this day have told me of your decision to fell me. I have come to beg you to change your mind." So the tree spirit tells the king that he is the spirit of the salt tree and he has come there to beg the king not to cut the tree. The foresters came and told him that the tree would be cut in 7 days. So now the tree spirit says, I have come here to beg to change your mind and not to cut the salt tree. So the king replied, no, I cannot. So the king very softly replies, no, I cannot do that. And the reason he gives is, yours is the only tree in all my parks strong enough to support a palace building, and therefore I must have it. So the king says, no, I cannot change my mind because yours is the only tree. This salt tree is the only tree in the park which is strong enough to support my palace building. So I cannot change my mind. I have to cut it. Now, children, read the lesson after me. The spirit within the tree thought, this must not be allowed. I must visit the king and persuade him. That night, while the king was asleep, a shining figure appeared to him in his dreams and spoke in a voice that was like a rustle. I am the spirit of the salt tree. O king, your foresters this day have told me of your decision to fell me. I have come to beg you to change your mind. No, I cannot, grumbled the king. Yours is the only tree in all my parks strong enough to support a palace building, and therefore I must have it. Now look at the underlined words in the paragraph. Let us learn the opposites of those words. First word, persuade. Can you tell me what is the opposite of persuade? Yes, the opposite of persuade is dissuade. Second one, asleep. The opposite is awake. Third one, appeared. The opposite is disappeared. Fourth one, strong. The opposite is weak. Now that you have read and understood the lesson, I will ask you a few questions. Try to answer. What did the tree spirit ask the king? Yes, the tree spirit asked the king to change his mind and not cut the tree. Next question. Why didn't the king agree to the tree spirit's request? Yes, the king did not agree to the tree spirit's request because the salt tree was the only tree in all his parks strong enough to support his palace building. Now, let us do a little grammar. In the last session, we learnt about adverbs. I hope you remember. Can you tell me what are adverbs? Yes, adverbs are words which describe a verb or tells more about the verb. gives more information about the verb. Now there are different kinds of adverbs, like adverbs of frequency, adverbs of manner, adverbs of place, adverbs of time, etc. So today we will learn about adverbs of frequency. Frequency means the period of time or how often an action is being done. Now look at the sentences. I often read the newspaper. They never play in the evening. Sheila usually goes to school with her mother. He sometimes drinks coffee. Now in these sentences, look at the words which are underlined. The underlined words are often, never, usually, and sometimes. Now these words, they tell us how often one does the work, like reading, playing, going, drinking, and so on. So these words, they are called adverbs of frequency. So they tell us how often one does the work. For example, in the first sentence, I often read the newspaper. So often means most of the times. So that means I read the newspaper most of the times, almost every day. Then second sentence, they never play in the evening. So here the word never is the adverb of frequency. So they never play in the evening. So do they play in the evenings? No, they never play. Then Sheila usually goes to school with her mother. So here the word usually is the adverb of frequency. It tells us Sheila usually goes to school with her mother. Most of the times Sheila goes to school with her mother. It is telling us the time or the frequency. Then the next sentence, he sometimes drinks coffee. So here sometimes is the adverb of frequency. That means he doesn't drink coffee always, only sometimes. So it is, all these words are telling us how often the action is being done. Usually the adverbs of frequency, they answer the question how often the work is done. Here is an activity for you children. First main, underline the adverbs of frequency in the following sentences. First one, my brother always tells the truth. Second one, we seldom watch TV these days. Third one, she is rarely seen in public nowadays. Fourth one, I go to temple regularly. Fifth one, you never help me. Second main, rewrite the sentences using the adverbs in brackets in its correct position. First one, he listens to the radio. In brackets, often. Second one, Ram gets angry. In brackets, never. Third one, my mother goes for a walk in the evening. In brackets, always. Fourth one, I sing songs at parties. In brackets, usually. Fifth one, I take sugar in my coffee. In brackets, sometimes. Now answer these. We will discuss the answers later. Hope you are ready with the answers for the activity. Check your answers. First main, underline the adverbs of frequency in the following sentences. First one, my brother always tells the truth. So the answer is always. Second one, we seldom watch TV these days. The answer is seldom. Third one, she is rarely seen in public nowadays. The answer is rarely. Fourth one, I go to temple regularly. The answer is regularly. Fifth one, you never help me. The answer is never. Second main, rewrite the sentences using the adverbs in brackets in its correct position. First one, he listens to the radio. You have to use often in the correct place. Answer, he often listens to the radio. Second one, Ram gets angry. So you should use never in the correct place. Answer, Ram never gets angry. Third one, my mother goes for a walk in the evening. So you should use always in the correct place. Answer, my mother always goes for a walk in the evening. Fourth one, I sing songs at parties. So you must use usually in the correct place. Answer, I usually sing songs at parties. Fifth one, I take sugar in my coffee. You must use sometimes in its correct place. Answer, I sometimes take sugar in my coffee. Hope you all have got your answer.